DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline of showing up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when it's success you've expected to achieve. It's nowhere to be found. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is that go-getter energy that moves you, me, and anyone else to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Putting all this together, you get the mindset, the method, the podcast known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is to follow their path. You got to live by their ways. That's what we're talking about here today. In other words, I'm saying if you want to follow the path of someone who has reached a certain level of success or they have achieved a certain level of achievement and you wish to follow in their footsteps, follow their path, follow their plan, and replicate their success for yourself and your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a really smart thing to model after someone else because they've already laid the blueprint for you. If you want to do that, understand that you got to live by that person's ways, not by your ways, but by their ways. If you want to replicate what they did, you got to do it how they did it. And it's often not the sexy, easy surface stuff that you got to replicate. Is the stuff that may not be seen in the light so often, but you need to know about because that's the stuff that is the foundation for how they created that success. So I'll explain to you why I even came up with this subject here today. I heard an NBA player by the name of Anthony Davis. Now, Anthony Davis is a great player, one of the best players in the league. This past season, he missed a whole lot of the season, not because he was injured, but because he demanded a trade from his current team, at least as of this recording, which was the New Orleans Pelicans, maybe still is, and the Pelicans didn't trade him. So they decided, instead of risking him getting injured, that he was going to play, but he wasn't going to play the whole game. So Anthony Davis played only 20 minutes per game when he's a guy who should be playing closer to 40 minutes per game, 35, 40 minutes a game. He only played 20 minutes a game for the whole rest of the season, basically threw away a season of his in the middle of his prime because he made this faulty trade demand. I say it's faulty because not to say he was wrong to demand a trade. He can demand one if he wants to, but because it didn't work. All right, now if you try something that doesn't work, you just got to admit that it didn't work. And Anthony Davis later, after this trade demand didn't work, he went on LeBron James's TV show. LeBron has his own show on HBO called The Shop, where LeBron invites some friends of his from the sport and entertainment world to sit in this makeshift barbershop. And they talk about whatever's on their minds. And it's kind of like a public relations repair shop is what they should call it, because Anthony Davis, Drake is going on there, Antonio Brown, people who have been in, I guess you would call, controversial situations within their industry. And they go on that show to kind of explain why they did the things that they did or why things happened the way that they happened. Anthony Davis goes on the show and he's basically explaining why he made this trade demand and how he was basically defending himself, defending the actions that he took in making this trade demand. And it all seemed a little bit funny to me because if you don't know, Anthony Davis's agent, his new agent, is the same guy who's LeBron's agent. He's actually one of LeBron's best friends, one of his brothers that LeBron even says. So they're all connected business-wise. So I think this was LeBron's idea. Hey, come on my show and explain yourself to the public without the media getting in between, which is all fine and good. Listen, if that's how you feel, you want to trade and go play for a different team other than one you're on, fine. That's how you feel. Now, if I agree with it or not, doesn't even matter because it's not me who signed the contract. It's you, Anthony Davis, who signed that contract. But one of the things I heard Anthony Davis say on the show, in the midst of defending his trade demand, he said, listen, I'm the CEO of my own company. I need to think about my own self and not worry about what everybody else wants from me. I need to do what I want to do and not do what they want to do. And you know what? Even though the context of how he said that, what went around that, I didn't quite agree with. If that's how he feels, that's how he feels. So I'm not questioning either of those in today's episode. Fine if that's what he thinks. If you want to follow LeBron James's blueprint because he's done these things outside of sports and he's making himself into an entity outside of being just being a great basketball player, that's fine. I mean, he has actually done that. I think there are a lot worse things you could do than follow LeBron James's outside of sports, quote unquote, more than an athlete, close quote, blueprint. There are many current day athletes who want to do the same thing. They're not even all basketball players. And it all sounds really good to say. I want to be the CEO of my own company. I want to take control of my own, control my own destiny. I want to focus on my legacy. I want to be more than an athlete. All these things that we've heard LeBron say, and now we hear a whole lot of other athletes say, and following in his footsteps. Again, nothing wrong with following in someone else's footsteps. If they've done something successfully, why not follow in their footsteps? It's much easier than trying to do it on your own. That's the easy part of following someone's lead, though, is to copy what they say. And to copy the things you can see on the surface, and copy the things that are easily copied. Something that you see somebody else do, and then the next day you could do the exact same thing. Those are the easy things. All right? And it all sounds excellent. What I'm talking about here today is none of that. The subject here today is that it's the other parts, the stuff that's not so easy to copy, that are part of what we discuss they're entwined in what we discuss today and what you need to understand. They are the most important parts of what we're going to discuss today. The stuff that's not so easy to copy, the stuff that the average person does not notice, and even if you showed it to them, they wouldn't see it. They wouldn't be paying too much attention to it, and they wouldn't focus on it because it's not surface, it's not sexy, it's not easy, it's not as duplicable as the surface sexy stuff is. That's the stuff we're going to talk about here today. And again, the topic is, if you're going to follow in somebody else's path, you have to live by their ways, not just the ways that are easily digestible, not just the bite-sized ways, not just the ways that they can show you on their social media posts, but in the things that go way deeper than that. If you're not willing to do those things, then you can't follow in that person's footsteps. You can try, but you're not going to get too far. And I'll explain exactly why as I go through these points here today. Point number one. When you want to replicate someone else's success, you got to go deeper than the surface. You got to go deeper than the quotes, than the Instagram posts, and you got to find the foundational elements of what that person does. So let's go back to our example, the one that I brought up at the top of this episode. Anthony Davis, it's obvious that he's following in LeBron James's footsteps of being a business mogul outside of being a great basketball player. Fine and good if that's what you want to do. You got the resources, you got the vision, and you have the want to do that. It's your life. You can do whatever you want to do. Here's the thing. LeBron James is the CEO of a company. But it's more than him being the CEO of a company, is more than his quotes or the stuff that he says on his shows or the stuff that he says on social or the stuff that he says to the media or anything that he can just say out of his mouth. It's more than that to be the CEO of a company. You know what one of the foundational elements of what LeBron James does off the court? The foundational element of what he does is not saying that I'm the CEO, is not saying about player empowerment, is not him making friends with certain people, is not any other surface shit that the average person would say about him. If I asked them, hey, what is it that makes LeBron James a great business person in addition to being a great basketball player? At least anyone who agrees with that is not anything that the average person would say if I asked him that question. You know what the foundation is of him doing what he does off the court? It's the fact that he has a team. Now, he has a team on the basketball court, but he has a team off the court. He got 3 guys with him. He has a TV show with these guys where they sit around and talk about their journey, how they came together, how each person knows his role, how each person plays his position, how each person is okay with the fact that they are all subservient to LeBron, that the business is based on LeBron James, and each one of them knows what their role is in working for him. Yes, they are all quote-unquote equals in some ways, but they all understand that the only reason this business keeps going is because of the golden goose being LeBron James. He has a team of 3 people who ain't basketball players who are handling all the more than stuff so LeBron can be the athlete. Now, so when LeBron says he's more than an athlete, the athlete is LeBron James. The more than is the 3 other guys on his team. That's the foundation of it. Now, today's topic again is if you're going to follow somebody else's path, you got to live by their ways. So if you want to follow in LeBron's path, you need a team. If you're going to be the athlete, but you want to be this business mogul at the same time, do you have 3 people who are handling business things for you while you're on the football field or while you're in practice or while you're playing in those games or while you're traveling from city to city on a back-to-back? Who's handling the business for you when you're doing the athlete thing? Because if you're trying to do both, you're not going to be good at either. You're going to be average at both, and then that golden goose is going to stop laying those golden eggs, and then all of a sudden you're out of business. This is the foundational thing that I'm talking about. See, that's the stuff that fuels the off-the-court moves for a guy like LeBron James. It's not just the quote, hey, I'm a CEO of my own company. That sounds good, and anybody can say it, and it's real easy to copy, but what about the work that goes behind it? It's not the buck the system quotables, or I don't need to do what everybody else wants me to do. And that sounds great. You'll get a little round of applause from the peanut gallery on social media who doesn't understand what's really going on. But when it's really time to be a CEO, who's on your team? That's the surface stuff that the shortcutters notice. The quotes, the buck the system stuff, the Instagram posts. The shortcutters notice that because that's what the shortcutters can copy. That's what the shortcutters understand. Let's think of another guy. Puff Daddy. I talked about Puff Daddy in episode number 195, Virtual Mentors episode. And I told you what it is about this guy that I've always liked, and pieces of what he's done, elements of what he's done that I've used to inspire myself, motivate me, and actions that I've taken in my own business, even though he's in the music industry and I don't do any music and he doesn't play any sports. How I was able to take some things from him. That's episode again, 195, Virtual Mentor, Sean Puff Daddy Combs. Now, Sean Puff Daddy Combs is known for champagne bottles, partying, having all the pretty girls in his videos and the shiny suits and dancing around and basically having a good time. I mean, he has Ciroc vodka. If he's around, that there's going to be a party that follows. I mean, that's just the image that he's created out there in the media. The champagne bottles, the partying, the flashiness, all that stuff though is surface. All that's the surface stuff about Puff Daddy. Many people don't know the foundational stuff about him, but I'm going to tell you some of that foundational stuff. When Puff Daddy was in college at Howard University, which I believe is in Washington, D.C., he was interning at a music company in New York City. He would take the train back and forth from Washington, D.C. to New York, which is I never took that train ride, but I've taken the car ride from Philly to New York. It's 2 hours driving. So on the train from D.C., I figured that's a 3, 4, maybe 5 hour train ride. Back and forth, 5 hours one way. He was going back and forth every week just so he could get his foot in the door in the industry. And he was working for free. He wasn't even being paid. He's taking the train back and forth 5 hours each way, damn near every week, just so he can get that experience in the industry because he knew he wanted to be in the music business. While he was doing that, he was learning the industry as an intern, going back and forth, figuring out how things work, figuring out how each department does what it does, and he wasn't being paid. Then he started going out and finding talent. He went and found somebody like Mary J. Blige. He found a Jodeci. He found a Notorious B.I.G. He found a rapper named Craig Mack. He found that talent, again, while he was working for somebody else's company. Eventually, he got himself a paying job, but he wasn't the boss yet. He wasn't the CEO yet. Then he nurtured that talent. He actually helped develop that talent and turn them into something that was worth money, that was worth an investment. Then he got those artists to buy into him as a visionary, as a person who can help direct their careers, as a person who is a guy to be followed. Then after all of that, then Puff Daddy started a company. Then he started to make the money. Then he could go and have the champagne bottles and the parties and the girls and the flashy stuff that the average person knows about him. See, all this foundational work that I just told you about, most people don't talk about that stuff when they talk about him. They talk about the surface stuff, the stuff that you can see, the stuff that any clown can go copy. But did you do the foundational work to actually have some solid footing underneath what you're doing, underneath the stuff that you show to the public? Michael Jordan, he once had a commercial back in his playing days, and maybe it was right after he had finished playing. And some of you maybe remember this commercial. I believe it was called My Fault. And if you go look this up on Google, the commercial's still there. And one of the things Mike said in that commercial is, maybe it's my fault that I have all you basketball players, I'm paraphrasing, I have all you players believing that my highlights started from me jumping from the foul line and doing dunks, rather than my highlights starting me being in the gym and putting that work in by myself. Again, paraphrasing what he said. He said, maybe I fooled you into believing that my game was all built on flash and showing off, and it wasn't built on fire and determination. Maybe I'm the reason why all you players are trying to get the rewards before you've proven anything. Or maybe you're just out here making excuses. And the point that Michael Jordan was making in this 60-second commercial was that the foundational stuff that I did is not the stuff that the average person talks about when they talk about it. They talk about the highlights. They talk about the flash. They talk about the jewelry and the sneakers and the endorsement deals and the money that I made and winning the slam dunk contest and me having my tongue out and all the stuff that is easy to mimic and copy. But what about the foundational work that I did that allowed me to do all that stuff? What about the hours in the gym that nobody knows about? What about those extra sessions in the weight room where there were no cameras? What about the fire in my belly that motivated me to get up every day and do that work, and get up at night and do that work again, and show up in practice and make the practices harder than the game. What about all that stuff? Nobody talks about that, but everybody wants to talk about my gold chains and how much money my sneakers make and how many endorsement deals I did. Listen, all of those came because of the foundational stuff. My house was built on rock. That's the point that Michael Jordan was making. That's the point that Puff Daddy would make. If in some of his interviews he talks about these things. The problem is most people don't ask him about them because they want to know about the surface shit. LeBron James doesn't talk about the things that I've laid out here as much because, again, the audience maybe that he has or whoever he thinks is listening, maybe he doesn't think they're going to have the patience to listen to him talk about this. But that's the foundation of him doing what he does in business. It's not him what he says. It's not what he talks about to the media. It's not him saying I'm a CEO. It's none of that. Those are the easy things. Anybody can do that. If anybody can do it, then it's probably not going to make you stand out. That's a quote right there for you. If you're doing something that anybody could go do tomorrow, that's not going to make you stand out from the crowd. Now, you should probably already know that by now. Michael Jordan told it. He laid it out. He said, look, y'all think that it's all about the highlights, but no, it was all these other things. The stuff that y'all know about, but you decide not to talk about, that's why I became who I became. That allowed everything else to happen. So which part are you paying attention to? Point number 2. Today's topic, again, is if you want to follow in someone else's path, you got to live by their ways. And not just the sexy, simple stuff that's easy for you to copy that you could go do tomorrow, but the stuff that is not so easy, is not so fun, is not sexy at all. You got to do that part if you want to live by, if you want to follow in someone else's path. This is what I mean by living by their ways. Point number 2, are you willing to do the not fun parts? This is the question. I heard a story of a basketball coach who would hold basketball tryouts. High school team, this could be a recreational league team, this could be a college team. Basketball tryouts, this is what the coach did. Coach didn't even bring basketballs into the gym for tryouts. So he blows the whistle. All the players are gathered around the gym. There's no basketball, and the players are kind of looking at the coach like, when you gonna bring the basketballs out so I can show you all my basketball skills? Coach said, ain't gonna be no basketballs today. Ain't gonna be no basketballs tomorrow either. All we gonna do are conditioning drills. Everybody get on the baseline. And the coach had those players do conditioning drills, not for one day, not for 2 days, for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks straight, all the coach had the players do, they had to show up at a certain time, just like any basketball practice, and he had them do conditioning drills for the entire practice for 2 straight weeks. So here's my question to you. Who made the team at the end of the 2 weeks? It was kind of a trick question. I'm not asking you for names because you don't even know what team I'm talking about here. The team chose itself. The coach didn't have to cut anybody. The coach did not have to look at a list of players and say, all right, well, look, I love all 20 of these guys, but only 12 of them can make the roster. He didn't have to do that because by the end of that 2 weeks, actually before he even got the 2 weeks, there was only 12 guys left. The whole team basically chose itself. He didn't have to cut anybody because he made it clear from the beginning without even saying in so many words, I'm going to have y'all do the not fun part. We're going to do that up front. Any of you who's played a sport, at least a sport that involves running. So we could talk football, we can talk basketball. Let's just talk those 2 sports. They involve running. I know for a fact that there are conditioning drills that are a part of practicing for football and basketball. You know that that's a part of being on the team, but usually you don't do that until you already made the team. When I was on basketball teams, we made it clear who was on the team and we showed all our skills. That's how the coach decided who would be on the team and what the rotations and all of that was. Then somewhere in the middle, we have a day where we did all this conditioning and stuff like that. This coach just decided to do it differently. He said, we're going to do the hard stuff up front. We're going to do the unsexy, not fun stuff. We're going to do this stuff up front because I'm going to find out who really wants to be on this team. Nobody's even going to touch a basketball. I don't know who can run, who can jump, who can dunk, who can pass, who can dribble. He didn't know any basketball skill of any player in that gym through 2 weeks. He just wanted to know who really wanted it. And through doing those conditioning drills, the team chose itself. He didn't have to cut anybody. When I was playing basketball, if you worked out with me, you heard my brother, my college teammate, Wes Pfeiffer, on this podcast twice. When we were working out, we weren't playing one-on-one for 2 hours. You can't imagine how many times I would be in the gym or on a court working out by myself. Some random straggler would come up to the court. They would kind of observe me a little bit. They could tell that I looked like I knew what I was doing on that court. They say, hey, can I work out with you? They get in to work out with me. They would always, every single time, they always wanted to play one-on-one because that's really what they wanted from the beginning. But they felt like, all right, let me just follow this guy, what he's doing for a little while. Then I'll ask him to do what I really want to do, which is play one-on-one. Listen, when I was working out, I can't tell you how many times, I'm using Wes as an example because you heard his voice here on his podcast. He's a Division I basketball coach. How many times we worked out together compared to how many times we played one-on-one? We didn't play one-on-one that many times. And if you know Wes, you can ask him. The number of times he and I played one-on-one, we could probably count on our hands. The number of times we worked out, probably 100-to-1 ratio between how many times we worked out compared to how many times we played one-on-one. Because it wasn't about the fun and games. One-on-one is the fun part. It's getting those shots up, doing those drills, doing those stretches, doing those warm-ups. That's the not fun part. Who's willing to do that? The flash and fun and game stuff, that's the surface stuff that you can show off to your fans, that you can post on your YouTube channel. You can show that to the spectators because that's what's going to sell to the average person. But what makes you good is not the flashy stuff. What makes you good is the stuff that we don't show to the fans because that stuff's not interesting for the fans to watch and is usually not fun, even fun to do, let alone fun to show anybody else. Are you willing to do that stuff? Because if you're not willing to do those things, then you can't be me and you can't be him and you can't be her or you can't be whomever's footsteps you're trying to follow in. You can't be that person if you're not willing to do the things that they did to get to where they got to. If you're not willing to lay the foundation that they laid. See, don't just notice the beautiful house that they built. Notice the foundation at the bottom under the house. There's a part in Miami, actually, I just thought of this right now. I meant to mention this earlier. Last week I was running. It was a Saturday morning. I was running in Miami and there's an area right on the water. Any of you who's familiar with Miami is right on the side of the Brickell Avenue Bridge. They're building a new condominium. Any of you follow me on my Instagram story, you know I'm always showing y'all construction and buildings being built and the metaphor of it, working one day at a time, everybody doing their job. But there's a new building that they haven't even laid the first slab of concrete yet. I believe the name is still the same. It's going to be called the Aston Martin Tower. And yes, it's named after Aston Martin, the car, right? And it's going to be right next to the Epic building, so this is like this little curved area, right when you get to the end of Biscayne Bay, before it turns into Brickell Avenue, before you cross the bridge. But I see the space where they're going to be building, right? And in the mornings, early in the mornings, they'll have this gate open because they have all these construction workers out there working, sweeping the sidewalks and things like that. And I can see inside the gate. I was jogging past this gate and I could see it was open a little bit because they had the workers in there and they had this deep ass hole in the concrete where the building is going to stand. Now, this is a pretty wide space. They're going to build I believe this tower is going to be like 65 stories tall. They haven't laid one slab of concrete yet, but the foundation, they were laying the foundation. The hole was so deep, I couldn't even see as deep as that hole went. It was wide and it was deep. I'm telling you about that to tell you this. I wish I could have got a picture of it. I didn't have my phone with me because I was running. I wish I could have got a shot of it to show you. The foundation, that's the part of the building no one will ever see. Once they start building the building and laying the concrete and laying the bricks and putting the windows in and all the fancy stuff that's going to make the tower look good on pictures and on Instagram, that stuff that the average person is going to see and the stuff that most people, only thing they're going to notice, nobody's ever going to see that foundation ever again until or unless that building gets knocked down, who knows, 100, 200 years from now. The foundation is the part nobody ever sees. But the foundation is the only reason that building is going to stand and look so pretty. Because if you take the foundation away, that whole building is going to fall right into Biscayne Bay. But it's the foundation that lets it stand. See, it's not the pretty part on the top floor of the building that is supporting the foundation. It's the foundation that's supporting the pretty part. That's the part that I'm trying to get across to you. So all the pretty things that you see, your favorite, your celebrities, your idols, whoever you like to follow, whatever phrase or label that you want to put on these people, the pretty things that you see are supported by the foundation underneath, the part that nobody ever sees once that building starts being built. You can't see it because it's hidden from view. If you can see it, then that means there's a problem. That building's about to fall over if you can look at the foundation. Foundation is hidden underneath the ground where it's supposed to be. But if without that foundation, everything that you see above ground doesn't exist. So the question is, are you willing to do the foundational stuff? And anyone whose success you want to follow, anyone whose success you want to mimic, anyone whose path you want to walk in, listen, I guarantee they'll tell you if you ask them, hey, what is the foundation of your success? I know about the stuff that you show online, the stuff that people talk about, and the stuff that people talk about when they interview you or if someone does a story on you. If you ever meet a person who has that kind of success that you want to copy, ask them, what's the foundational work? Tell me a couple of the foundational pieces of your success, not the shiny stuff. Not the endorsements, not the brand deals, not the marketing stuff, not the commercials, not all that. Tell me about the foundational stuff. I guarantee you they'll tell you. I guarantee you before they even tell you, their eyes gonna light up. They're gonna be looking. They're gonna remember you because you know they're gonna think, and they might even say this to you. Nobody ever asked me about that stuff. Nobody ever asked me about that. People ask me about the surface things, the stuff that they can see. Nobody ever asked me about the foundational stuff. I guarantee you they'll tell you that. If they don't, you can come back and let me know that happened and who it was, that they didn't say that. I guarantee you though that they will. Point number 3. Today's topic is if you want to follow their path, you got to live by their ways. Point number 3 is you got to be willing and prepared to do more than that other person did. If you're going to follow in my path or somebody else's path or any famous person, celebrity, successful person, whatever label you want to give that person, you got to be willing to do more than what they did to get to where they're at because you're not them. Giannis Antetokounmpo, aka the Greek Freak, NBA star, may, by the time you have heard this, have won NBA's MVP award, may not have won it just yet, may not win it at all, but he's a pretty damn good player. I think we all can agree with that. In the off season, the summer of 2018, before this past season just ended, the summer before this season, Giannis went to Los Angeles and he was working out with a guy by the name of Kobe. And Giannis said that the workout was scheduled for 2:30 p.m. He got to the gym at 11 o'clock a.m. He got to the gym 3.5 hours early. Now, I'm telling you that not to impress you or just to say that, all right, you just need to show up 3 hours early and you'll automatically be successful. You know that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is while doing more than what the other person's doing is not always the necessity, is not always the best idea, is not always the case. The point that I'm trying to give you with that story is Giannis had the willingness to go further. And the willingness to go further is a requirement. Now, you may need it and you may not, but the willingness to do so is a requirement because the person that you're modeling after, they're already there. All right, where you're trying to get to, they're already at that spot. You're not there yet. If any of you remember when Puff Daddy, as we mentioned earlier, he had an MTV show called Making the Band. And once he put together a group and he told them, we're in Manhattan, but I need y'all to go walk to Brooklyn and get me a slice of cheesecake. Or maybe it was a whole cheesecake. But either way, they had to walk from Manhattan to Brooklyn. Now, I'm not from New York, but from what I could surmise from watching that show, from Manhattan to Brooklyn is a pretty long walk. All right? They were not too happy about having to take that walk. But he made them go walk to get him a slice of cheesecake. Now, was there any practical reason? Is having people walk from Manhattan to Brooklyn going to make them better singers or better rappers or help them sell more records? Or is it going to do anything for Puff Daddy to have them walk from Manhattan to Brooklyn? Probably not. It's probably just for TV. I doubt he would do that to anybody. I doubt he's done that to anybody in real life off camera. But the principle that he was trying to explain to them and show to the audience, and the one thing that I remember about that whole situation was, listen, he was letting those people know, I'm already at this level. I've already achieved everything that you're trying to achieve times 10. So you need to prove to me that you really want to roll with me, that you really want to get on the level that I'm at. Because listen, I don't need to help you as much as you need me to help you. Now that may sound harsh to some of you, but it's true. I want to say it one more time so you make sure that you heard exactly what I said. Puff Daddy was letting them know, and this is something that, listen, your coach, your trainer, the person that you follow online, the guru whose website you signed up on or membership you signed up for, a podcast that you listen to or YouTube channel that you watch or their retreat that you go to. Listen, if you're following in that person's path, you need their help more than they need to help you. And again, some of you may see that as harsh. Some of you may see that as, man, I wish nobody would say that to me. That means they're kind of being a jerk. Why can't people just be nicer about things? Listen, I'm going to give you the harsh realities of the way things work here. Listen, Kobe Bryant didn't need to train Giannis Antetokounmpo as much as Giannis needed to train with Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant don't need to train with nobody. Kobe Bryant already got the accomplishment. He already got the rings. He was retired. What do you need to train with anybody for? He don't need to talk to any player who's in the NBA today. None of them have achieved what he's achieved. He helps them out because he wants to, not because he has to. I doubt he even needs their money. I doubt he's even charging them for it. Puff Daddy, when he put the band together, well, I'm sure he wanted to make money from a new act signed to his label. But look, if that act didn't work out, I'm sure he could find 30 other people who are more than willing to walk to Brooklyn who wanted to be signed to Puff Daddy so they can make some money as an artist and get their foot in the door. I'm sure he could. Now, those people who are in the band, how many more Puff Daddies could they find? That's the point that I'm making here to you. So when you're following in the path of another person and they tell you to do something, you not only need to be willing and able and ready to do it, but you got to be willing, able, and ready to do more than what they told you to do. And if you're not willing to do that, then you need to step your ass to the side, because listen, they don't need you as much as you need them. If you're going to follow somebody else and you ask them, what are the foundational aspects of what you did, and they tell you, and you're not willing to do those foundational things, then you need to perish the thought of following in their footsteps, because you're not willing to do what they did. If you're only willing to do the surface stuff, the sexy stuff, then look, anybody can do that. How are you going to stand out doing that? It's a trick question. You won't. Let's recap today's topic, which is to follow their path, you got to live by their ways. And I told you the story that led me to even talking about this topic. Anthony Davis saying he wanted to be the CEO of his own company, but just talking about being a CEO doesn't make you a CEO. It's the foundational stuff that goes underneath what LeBron James, the guy whose footprints he's trying to follow in, is what the foundational stuff that LeBron did that made him the CEO that he's really standing on, that being a CEO. And it's not the stuff that he talks about, it's stuff that he has foundationally that most people don't talk about, or at least they don't quite understand. That's what makes it real. Recapping, point number one. When you want to replicate somebody else's success, look deeper than the surface. Look deeper than their quotes or their social media posts and find the foundational elements of what they do. LeBron James is the CEO of a company, but it's more than quotes. He has a team. He has 3 other guys handling his business for him on the back end. You got to be willing to do that stuff and do that foundational stuff that's not easy to do, that's not easy to build, that makes you that whatever on the surface, whatever it happens to be. Point number 2, are you willing to do the not fun parts? A basketball coach held tryouts. All he did was conditioning drills, just sprints and all those kind of stuff with no basketball for 2 whole weeks, just to find out who really wanted to be on the team. At the end of that 2 weeks, he didn't even have to select the team because the team selected itself. Everybody else just stopped showing up. When I was playing ball, if you worked out with me, we're just doing drills. We're not playing one-on-one. We're not doing stuff that's going to go on Instagram. This is just stuff. These are just drills we're doing. Foundational stuff that we're going to be doing over and over and over again. The flash and the fun and games, that's surface stuff that you show to the fans and the spectators, because that's what sells and that's what they understand. But what makes you good is the stuff that the fans don't see, stuff that the fans don't know about, the stuff that the fans wouldn't even find interesting. And the funny thing is, the fans become the fans because of stuff they see on the surface, but it's what's underneath that makes you be who you are. As I said, that Aston Martin Tower, the building in Miami, is going to be 65, 70 stories high. They dug a hole so deep for the foundation of that building, I couldn't even see to the bottom of it, and I was right next to it. That's the stuff that people never see, never will see, and don't want to see. But without that, none of the other stuff happens. Point number 3. You got to be willing and prepared to do more than the other person did. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's a superstar in the NBA. He's going to win some MVP trophies in his career if he doesn't win one in 2019. As of the time that I'm recording this, he worked out with Kobe Bryant. Kobe has some hardware. He has some championships. He has some gold medals. He has an MVP award. He showed up 3 hours before Kobe did for a workout with Kobe, and he's already a superstar in the NBA. Now, while I'm not saying that always doing more and showing up early is just the only thing that's going to make you successful, you got to have the willingness to go further. It is a requirement, because the person that you're modeling after, they already got the achievement. Okay? You don't have it yet, so you may have to do more than what they did. When Puff Daddy made the band walk from Manhattan to Brooklyn to get him a slice of cheesecake, it wasn't because that was going to make them better singers or rappers or help them sell more records. It was Puff letting them understand, listen, I've already done the things that y'all want to do. So if you're not willing to do what I tell you to do, even if you think it's ridiculous, then you need to step to the side, because there are 3,000 other people right outside this door who will gladly take your spot. Sounds harsh, but it's true. And in the game group, building your business, building your basketball game. Those of you who want to play professional basketball overseas, we have sections for all of these within the game group. If you want to get to a certain level, there are certain things that you need to do that may not be as sexy, may not be as easy, may not be as cut and paste as you thought they were, but they do exist, and there are strategies behind them. And I opened up the game group just to teach you those strategies piece by piece, not hacks, not tips, but piece by piece strategies for you actually achieving a specific laid out outcome for your career in basketball, for building your business, for building your skills in basketball, or for building yourself as a person from the inside out. That's all in the game group at dreallday.com/game group or dreallday.com/membership. Both go to the same place. Work on your game. dreallday.com.